VT English 4 students. We're now going to practice looking for and analyzing narrative voice and characterization in the prose passage 3 from the other Paris. Now I'm going to assume that you've already read this yesterday, and so I'm not going to read the passage again. Today we're just going to talk about it. If you look at the writing prompt, I've color-coded the parts that we're going to be looking at. So I've colored some of the things green for narrative voice. I've highlighted the things that talk about characterization pink, and the ones that specifically deal with a social commentary on love and marriage in yellow. All right, so we can look at this and easily tell that it's not written in first person. We know that it's told about Carol and Howard, and we know that it's an excerpt from a larger story called The Other Paris by a Canadian writer named Mavis Gallant. So we know that it's third person. At the beginning it looks like it's limited omniscient perspective, as we hear mostly only about Carol and her thoughts and her motivations. We'll see if that carries through to the end. We do know that there are editorial comments on love and marriage, and so that also is part of the narrator or the narrative voice analysis. Alright, so in the first paragraph we see the pronouns that we're looking for Carol and Howard, her and she and he, so that further proves that it's third person. Let's look at the second paragraph. If somebody were to ask Carol what precise moment she fell in love, she might share with them their ideal fairy tale story of falling in love in Paris, having it involve the moonlight, the beautiful scenes, the flowers, maybe even a misty background of the Eiffel Tower in the crooked streets of Paris. That's the story that she nearly even believes herself. So that's the idyllic view. But the very next paragraph talks about what really happened and how Howard proposed to her at lunch over tuna fish salad. And we see that they've only known each other for less than 3 weeks, and she's only 22. So far their relationship or their discussions had only been talking about their work and the people that they work with. So it hadn't gone to private or personal information. It hadn't gone to intimate discussions. It's just a typical work relationship. But then all of a sudden, out of the blue, he asks her to marry him. Now, you got to start asking yourselves, well, if she has this fairy tale view of love and marriage, why does she jump out this reality? And so we see it towards the bottom of that paragraph. She says she's under the illusion that in a short time she would be so old that no one would ask her again, thinking that she's getting too old at 22, and she better jump at getting married. Well, the next paragraph we see that Carol is not in love. The fact that she's not in love with Howard doesn't dismay her in the least. So she's either still has that idealistic view, or she's looking for something else. So in that next sentence, it helps us out with, well, she's taken college classes and lectures on marriage, and so she's looking at love and marriage through that lens, through that idea. So if she's discussing that the common interest, such as dogs or having similar hobbies, is the true basis of happiness, and that the illusion of love, this fairy tale idea, is a blight imposed by the film industry and almost entirely responsible for the high rate of divorce. So she has some ideas. Maybe there's some background that we don't know about that's causing her to have this idea of what they're teaching in colleges, how love and marriage should happen. If they have the same economic background, if they have financial security, if they belong to the same church, that's the pillars of a good marriage, she says. And then at the bottom of that paragraph talks about the astonishing coincidence that both her father and Howard's father were attorneys, but that they had both been defeated in their attempt at being elected judge. I'm not sure how that fits into the story, other than there's some shared history there, there's some shared common ground there. So you should keep that in mind as we're, they're trying to find a relationship together. And then at the end of that page 1, it says that they were both vaguely Protestant, although a serious discussion of religious beliefs would have gravely embarrassed them. So what does that tell us about them being able to have serious discussions about what they value and they believe, and why is that off limits? So at the end of that page and at the top of the next page, we see that Carol instead is looking at Howard as a safe person, one who's sober, old enough to know his own mind, what he likes, what he wants to do. He's absolutely reliable, and that's what she's looking for. So at the end of that first paragraph on page 2, there's no reason for the engagement or the marriage to fail. And so that's a big comment on love and marriage. On the second paragraph, the first full paragraph on page 2, we see that Carol is really going to start working out how she can fall in love with Howard, and Howard can fall in love with her. So she's just looking for the right conditions, kind of like water and sun and a place to grow for a plant. So she thinks, the love would wither in bad weather or in dismal surroundings. So she doesn't want to, try and build a relationship inside. So she's going to focus in on the climate of Paris. Paris is supposed to be the city of love. Well, if they have good weather, they have enough money, and they have, two intelligent people, then it should work out. You should just sit back and be able to let it grow by itself. You don't have to work for it, you just let it grow. All right. Then we see Howard's perspective. So this is where I start thinking, maybe it's not just limited omniscient. Maybe we get to see into Howard and his motives. Obviously, he's not he's kind of oblivious of all this that Carol is trying to do. His sudden proposal was quite out of character for him. He's usually pretty cautious, pretty uninteresting. He alternates between a state of numbness and self-congratulation. He can sometimes be lonely, discontented with his bachelor life. If he doesn't really want to do the domestic things like cooking and cleaning, so unless he stumbles upon a maid or somebody who'll do it for him, nothing really gets done. So that's kind of a character of Howard. But all of these things together wouldn't have spurred him into getting married. Really, what spurred him on to ask Carol was he was seriously unsettled down there at the last paragraph by a visit of one of his sisters, who told him that if he didn't get married soon, it'd be too late for him and he would just be the third person in dinner parties. And he saw this picture at once and decided to be motivated by that. So you can see how the author Gallant has used narrative voice and characterization to make a commentary on love and marriage from Carol's perspective, from Howard's perspective, and the fairy tale perspective. So hopefully this helps you in writing the writing prompt, which is at the top here for you to look at. Thanks.